Desktop to bottom right. That's the one we want. All right. But before we do that, I need to go back to the other one. So let me go back to this one. I'm going to go here in just a minute. Okay. I think we're ready. Hey everybody, thanks for being here. It is Saturday, February 5th, 2022. It's almost noon. It's 11:57 a.m. It's a cold and icy day here in Dallas, Texas. We've actually had a lot of businesses and schools closed down for the past couple of days. But the reason I wanted to do this show today is because I wanted to talk about a Tableau project that I've been working on actually for a couple of years. I was talking to my son Noah, who was 10 at the time. He really likes Pink Floyd, and I do too, obviously. And we have some fun conversations. So one day we were just talking about how the albums have really changed a lot. And I was like, oh man, you can listen to one album, like some of these early albums like Metal, and you'll go and hear these 20-minute song like Echoes, and they might sing for less than a minute in that 20 minutes. And then if you listen to an album like The Wall or The Final Cut, there's hardly any there's no long instrumentals like that. And there's very even few instrumental sections. I think in The Final Cut, there might only be 2. So when you think about some of the best guitar solos in Pink Floyd history, for example, like a lot of them come in the early years before they got so lyrical. So we thought I like data, and we thought it might be kind of fun to analyze it and actually look at the music structurally and decompose it and see if we were to chart it, what would it look like in terms of like a long sectional being a certain color on a bar chart, and then the vocal section being a different color, and then and so forth. And then if you had all that data, what if you could then chart it and make it look really cool and do some really fun stuff with it? So I talked him into helping me with it on a long car ride home. I gave him a notepad and drew out a grid and told him, okay, I want you to write down, I want you to listen to this album starting at Piper at the Gates of Dawn, and at every transition write down the start time, the end time, and what that section was. Was it an instrumental or a vocal? And so he did it. So by the time we got home, he had done maybe 1 album or 2. And so I kind of took that and converted that to an Excel spreadsheet, and then we kind of played with it. And I put together a couple of visualizations just to see, wow, what could we do with this? This is kind of fun. And then I kind of put it aside and didn't really think about it much more. I did think about it, and actually I had a new hire join me at my company, and he said, oh, I really like Pink Floyd. We were just talking one day, and he mentioned that he liked Pink Floyd, and he also wanted to learn Tableau. And I was like, oh man, I actually have this cool Tableau, this cool Pink Floyd data that I've been working on with my son. I've been wanting to do something with it. So I used it as a training material for the guy I hired to learn Tableau. And we kind of built some tooltips and did some fun little things. And I showed him how to do a stack bar chart, and that was fun. But then again, then I put it aside. And then there's this competition called Iron Viz that Tableau puts on. And that is what it is it's based on Iron Chef, the cooking competition, where you have 3 chefs on a stage, and they have 10-20 minutes to cook something, and then they present it, and then the judges judge it. They pick a winner, and they give feedback and stuff. It's the same concept, but instead of cooking food, you cook up a visualization, a data visualization. So what they do is they give the contestants the same data set, and then you have 20 minutes to create this visualization live on a stage. It's like a pretty big event. It's in front of more than 10,000, probably around 10,000 people. And then the winner gets cash prizes and stuff. I think $10,000 is the first prize. So in order to this event is put on at Tableau conference and broadcast live globally as part of the conference event. So the people who are on the stage are presenting. It's a pretty cool event, and I'd like to be a part of it if possible. So I've been the way that you get to be part of it is you submit an entry. So they give you a category, and they say, okay, the category is, for example, the last time I submitted was on food. That's a pretty broad category. You can submit food. You can do anything. So I did like a deep dive analysis into the fast food industry, because my family, we love fast food in my family. We eat Culver's at least one night a week, Cane's at least one night a week. We have a very regimented schedule. So, I was kind of interested. So I did a deep dive analysis on the fast food industry and put together some pretty cool visualizations. And I'll kind of show that if anybody's interested. That was a few years ago. I didn't make it on stage, but it was fun. It was fun to just compete. And then the people that did make it on stage were way better than my submission anyway. So this year, the category is art. So that's once again a pretty broad category. It can be pretty much anything that's art. So music, right? And so what better time to pick up that Pink Floyd project that I had been working on a couple of years ago. So I just picked up luckily I already had this structure, the structure to collect the data that was already in Excel. And I already had some of the basic structure in Tableau to know, like, I can use this data, I can stack it, I can color it. But what I didn't have was the full data set. I still had to go and collect, I think, 12 more albums out of the 15. And I also didn't know how to make this look cool. I don't know, I didn't know what to do with it. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and make it look cool. So let me just catch up here. Yeah, Red John, so you watched all of ours on YouTube. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. Sorry if I'm late. Key point, make it look cool. Yeah, that's exactly right. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead, and what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the process from the very first step. So we're going to start with just looking at figuring out what the competition is. But before we do that, actually, I'll show you the full thing. So this is what it's going to look like when we're done. And let me see if I can move this over. Okay. So this are what we're going to create here. Okay, so since the competition is actually live on stage and creating this visualization from scratch, I figured I'll do that. I'll actually create it live in front of you on Twitch as part of the show. And then what we create today will be the submission. So I do have my first draft here, and we'll be using this as our guide to what create. But we're going to start from the very beginning, including looking at the Iron Viz competition, clicking the download button for downloading Tableau, installing Tableau, looking at the data, starting the whole thing from scratch. And hopefully we can do the whole thing in under an hour, but we'll see. So this is what we're going to be creating. So this is the Pink Floyd project final first draft form. And what you're seeing is every album in chronological order. And I'm intentionally keeping my mouse off the screen because there's actually a lot that happens with the tooltips. But what you're seeing is across the top are albums from left to right in chronological order. And then those bars under them are small, really teeny tiny bar charts that represent each song. So if you see really long bar charts, those are really long songs. And the color variances represent vocals versus instrumental. And then this long bar chart from 1967 to 2014 is every single section squished together in one long bar chart. So now let me hover over that and I'll show you what I mean. So if I hover over this album, it shows me the album, the year it was released, the total number of tracks, the total length of the album. That $2 million in global sales is not, that dollar sign shouldn't be there. That should be 2 million global sales units, not I need to fix that. We'll fix that on this submission. And then we see the distribution of vocals versus instrumental for that entire album. So Pipe Read the Gates of Dawn, Pink Floyd's very first album, had 11 tracks and it was 38% vocals total. Then underneath that, we can see each individual track. So we can see Interstellar Overdrive there is 100% instrumental. The Gnome is 100% vocals. By percentage, obviously it's not 100%. I counted it in 10-second segments. So if it was less than 10 seconds, I didn't bother making that. So we can do that for every album. So I mentioned the final cut earlier and how it's very vocal. Look at that. This is a stark difference. It's 70% vocal. And every song is really heavy. And then what's really cool about these individual bars now is as we hover over these individual bars, those represent different sections of the song. And on the light pink ones, those are the vocal sections. If you hover over those, you'll actually see the lyrics and who's saying them. The primary vocal singer. So I just used my best judgment. Maybe I didn't always get it right, but most of the time you can tell. I did have to look up some of them. And I just figured, this is Roger Waters, or this is a multiple. There were a few where they were, I couldn't quite tell, and I had to look them up, and they were multiple, so I just put them as multiple. And then what's also pretty cool about this is we can actually click this, and it opens it up in YouTube.
So you think you could tell?
And I don't know if you noticed that played directly on So You Think You Can Tell, which is exactly what our tooltip says. So You Think You Can Tell from 1:35 to 2:37 is vocals for 1:02 duration. So that functionality is pretty cool when you can click it and listen to it on YouTube. But it can be kind of annoying if you're just like wanting to click and then every single time you do it, it opens up a different thing. So I do have the option to turn that off right here, with a little tooltip here that says, enabling click to listen on YouTube will play selected song segment in a new window. It can be fun or annoying. Pick your own adventure. So now that we have that turned off, we can freely click. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. So then we just have a little description here of the project. But basically the story is that my hypothesis is that no two Pink Floyd albums are the same. That's the statement I started with. But I figured I could show that with data, but the problem is actually the data, they actually do end up looking pretty similar. But I figured I would leave it because it's what I started with. It was my idea. But it can be hard to explain exactly how they're different, but a lot of it has to do with the basic structure of the song and whether or not someone's singing and how long it is. So basically what I did is I analyzed all their tracks and labeled the different sections. And I ended up with 535 rows of custom data that covered 15 albums of their 47 years of music. And man, I'm telling you, Uma Guma is terrible. I never want to have to listen to that album again. So I forgot how bad it was, but this made me do it. So then I kind of really struggled with how to make it look cool, but I decided what's kind of cool about it is just the story. So I decided to just kind of write it out in story format. So what we have here is just their entire discography represented as one long bar chart. And then as we hover over each section, we can see what these are. So we can really see these long instrumentals here. They really stand out, right? So these long sections, and this is that terrible album I just mentioned. They do have a couple of good songs, a couple of redeeming qualities, like A Saucer Full of Secrets. My gosh, the ending is amazing. And I wanted to almost break it up into two sections, two instrumental sections, and I was even tempted to call it vocals, just to kind of capture that, but I didn't. But yeah, this you can really see this here. So you really see these long vocals, like Adam Hart Mother's 23 minutes of nothing but instrumental. And then as you progress throughout their discography, you'll see like here's going to be Dark Side of the Moon somewhere in the middle. Yeah. So you can see once you get into Dark Side of the Moon, these sections get a lot smaller, and there's a lot more vocals mixed in. And then when you get into these late Roger Waters years, where he's really taken over, and Roger Waters is really having he has a lot to say in Final Cut. Basically, it's rare to hear more than 20 seconds of not Roger Waters speaking in this album. And then he leaves the band, and it goes back to the more traditional, not traditional, but they go back to more of their roots in terms of these long instrumental sections. And then they even close out their discography with one album of basically all instrumentals. So that's pretty cool. You can see that, and you can track it all in this one bar chart. And if you're on Tableau desktop, not online, this performance is much faster, and you don't get this delay. But hey, it's not bad. So then that's pretty cool. But then what I wanted to do was actually show it break it out by album. So here, this is showing you the album length here, and then as you hover over it, you can see this distribution. Clicking these doesn't do anything for the album. And then you can see the total album sales. Once again, you take the $sign off of this. And the reason I put this here is just to give people an idea of popularity, of knowing like, oh, these are going to be the albums here where they had more sales, these peaks are higher, are going to be the albums where that you're probably more familiar with. And then putting all the tooltips, all the songs in the tooltips looks cool, and it works pretty well. And then when we come down here, we can actually see, you can just do a side-by-side comparison of two different albums. So you can just have a drop-down menu here, pick an album, see the breakout of the songs in order. And then if you have the click to enable, then that's turned on, and you can click it and then it'll play it. And then you can just pick another album here and look at them side by side. So then to close it off, I just had a few notes. It says, I put this together, and I could go on and on and on and have a ton of different ideas as far as what to do with this. But it can be pretty overwhelming. So I decided to just kind of stop it there and then just leave it with some takeaway notes. So some of the things that I thought we could do with this is, what if we also captured the lead singer? So you may have noticed as I hover over these sections, it actually says the singer. When I finished this initially, it didn't. I went back and added it. So then, and now that we have that though, think about the cool things we could do. And I actually started some of that, so we have a little bit of a work in progress, so what we can look at in just a second. Then I also think it would be pretty cool to have other artists, like popular artists, like Lady Gaga, Taylor Swift, Eminem would be fascinating. Really hip hop would be really fascinating. I don't think they have long instrumentals in hip hop. So I don't know, it might be cool. I bet you if we were to look at country music, almost every song would look the same. That could look pretty interesting. But there has to be a way to make this process more efficient. I was talking to my friend Aaron about this, and he says, yeah, we could probably make some kind of a JavaScript or some kind of an algorithm that would just listen and could automatically tell what was happening and log that, and then we can do something with that data and then just create the data for you automatically. Imagine that then, if you could just pass it a YouTube song and then it spits out this visualization or an album. That would be amazing. So that's an idea. So I just have a note here if you're interested in helping with the project, or Tableau, or just interested about anything. Building furniture, building tree houses, let me know. And I have my contact information. You can reach me here on Twitter. And you can also do my LinkedIn. And then here's the other tabs here. So we have an all data tab. And what this tab is just all of the data. Just kind of ugly, not, just all of the data. And then this just gives it to you exactly how it would look in Excel if anybody wants to take this and do something else with it. We also have the all songs tab, which is just all of the songs broken out in order, in chronological order. You have the same functionality here. You click to listen. You can search by song. You can filter this out by year. You can search by album. You can also zip this guy up. So if you just wanted to look at it, their totals by year, and then expand it and contract it and so forth. And then finally, here's the lead vocals. So what this lead vocals is, this is the work in progress. So this just tells us the breakout by lead singer, and then what their trends look like. So this is not a finished product. I just wanted to kind of play with it and see what they look like. So now that we've seen what their final product is, I'm going to show you how to build it from scratch. So it's 12:18 right now. Let's see how long it takes to build this. Actually, first I'm going to show you the data. Okay. So here is the data, how it's structured. I just added an ID. That's just an internal ID that just says that plus that. No reason. It's helpful to have an idea. You guys know that. Then we have album, and that's just a simple thing. What I did is I just went and copied every single album, and then I just duplicated it hundreds of times, just because I knew, generally speaking, how long this is going to be. I did the same thing for each individual song. This was a pain, and I know I could have done it better, but I literally took every song and then just duplicated it like 4 times, and then put it. But then after that, then my manual work in terms of copying and pasting was pretty much done, because then after that I just used formulas. So my formula here is, if my song is the same as last time, then use the end time. If it's different, make it 0. So if I set this song right here to a different song, it's going to set my time to 0, and it's also going to put that dividing line there for me, which makes things nice. So that's kind of nice in the automation there. Then I did have to log each individual end time. So this is manual. And entering the time here, I wish I could have done it. It's a total pain. I had to do 0:0 number colon for every end time. It was a pain. But, whatever. My duration is a formula, just subtracting the 2. And then I wanted that in seconds, because that's helpful to have that both ways. And then I had to manually fill out the content type. So my data entry was my end time and my content type. Looking back on it, I should have put them side by side, so I didn't have to double tap like that. And then I went back later and added these 2 columns for lead vocals and note. Okay, and then my note, I originally just had that because of just certain parts of the song. I just wanted to add a note. And I didn't think about it later that I should add in actually what it is. So this was much, much later, actually yesterday, that I went back and listened to all of these and filled them in. Some of them most of them I knew, but some of them I had to look at the lyrical thing. Hey, Lillian. All right, so then the song link, I had to go get all these. So I had to go search YouTube for every single song and get the link. And then, so this was manual. And then the time link, what it does is it just appends the second to it. So it's just a formula that says, give me that song link plus the start time in second format. So that formula is just the and sign, and it does the D6 times 86 400. The album year is a VLOOKUP. I just went and got another tab that's going to give me all the albums and the year, the track number, the song number, and then this is just my VLOOKUP. All this is doing is just moving my track number over there, so my VLOOKUP works. So my album ID is just using a VLOOKUP. I'm sorry, my album ID is not using a VLOOKUP. I could have used a VLOOKUP off of the song name or off of the album name. I'm not sure why I didn't. I actually just said if it's different, if the album is different, then set it the same. If it's not different, then add 1. So it's just a dynamic formula. And then my track number Same thing. It does this. It's another formula. It says if it's different, then add 1. It's not doing a VLOOKUP. Then I concatenate those two together, so I have another kind of unique identifier. My album sales formula is supposed to work, but it works in Excel. But basically, it's doing a sum if. I guess my sum if doesn't work on Google Sheets. So what I did is I just made just the values and pasted it, just so I have them and I can use it in Google Sheets. So then the song length is just taking the maximum song length. I could have done this in Tableau, but actually Tableau didn't. There were issues with Tableau getting the mid. Tableau did not like getting the middle. So it was easier to do that in Excel. So I got the song length here and I got the middle. The reason I need the middle will become apparent later. It's not needed if you just want to do data analysis, but if you wanted to do some artistic work with it, you want the middle. So that's the data. So now let's look at the actual Tableau stuff. Okay. Okay, so this is the Tableau Iron Viz competition. This talks about what it is. So if anybody out here wants to check it out, here is the link. Anybody can enter. It's for anybody who's interested in data, really. You can click this video and see what it's about. Yeah, so that's it. So that's what we're hoping to be on the stage for that. So the first thing we have to, in order to enter, you just download Tableau Desktop, create a Tableau public profile, get the data, submit your viz. Downloading here, you can do it. I've already done it, but I'll just show you how. So we just enter an email, click download the app. It's going to do it. I've already done it. It's right here. So I'm actually walking through the whole thing from very beginning. So here's I uninstalled Tableau, just so we could do it live in here together. And hopefully this doesn't take super long time. And it didn't. Perfect. All right. Here we go. So whenever you open Tableau, the first thing I had to do is connect to data. So Microsoft Excel is what I originally used, but now we've moved it to Google Docs. So we're going to say more, and we're going to do Google Sheets. Going to do this guy. Okay, so now that we've logged into Tableau, we can see all of our Excel worksheets. Pink Floyd project is the one we just looked at. Connect. And then we see we have all tracks, song structure, studio album sales. The one we looked at was called song structure. We'll drag that guy in. So then we see our ID, album, song, start time, and so forth. Excellent. So we'll go ahead and click sheet 1 to go to that worksheet. And then now what we have is Tableau has broken out our data here. So we see our tables, and then we see our album sales and our duration are kind of below this little line because those are measures. Those are things that we would like create a bar chart out of. So now that we've done that, let's go ahead and then drag in the album. There's all of our albums. Let's drag in the duration. There's the total length of each individual album. Let's put our song in there. So there's each album, each song, total length. Let's show the label so we can see that. So that 105 is number of seconds. All right, so everything is being sorted right now in alphabetical order. I don't want to sort it in alphabetical order. Let's sort it by like ID. So since we have an ID, that's awesome. So we can right click on this guy and sort. And we want the sort order to be a field. And that field is going to be album ID. And it's not going to be the count of the album ID, because then any album that has the lowest number of records is going to be at the top. It's going to be either the minimum or the maximum. So the minimum would work. So the minimum is going to be 1 for this entire album, and then so forth. So that puts them in the right order. And then same thing with the song. We want to sort the song by the field for that one is going to be, I think, track number. And not the count, but the minimum. So now we have all of our songs in order. And then now if we want, so this is just telling us the total length of the song, but it's not broken out into individual segments. So we want to break those into individual segments. One thing, well, actually first, let's break them out into like segment type. So if we put duration on our color, I'm sorry, not duration, content type on our color, what that does is that then breaks out this into then vocals and instrumental. So that's cool. Let me get this so you can see it a little better. There we go. And then we can change the colors. So right now we have this is blue and that. So let's go to like this pink thing. Let's go purple. Let's do this one and then maybe this one. And then we can go to Format, Shading, and we can change our all of this. So we can also change the font colors to be white for the whole worksheet. So there we go. So now we've got, and then also I hate grid lines. So in all of my Excel workbooks, all of my Tableau, I would always turn grid lines off. We don't need these labels anymore from an artistic standpoint, but they're there. That's fine. So let's go ahead and just take them off. So we'll do that by taking that off. And then now what we want to do is we want to put these in chronological order. So in order to do that, we can use that ID that we had before. So all we have to do is just drag our ID to the detail. And then we're going to, what that does now, it makes individual segments for each ID. So if I take ID off of there, it's just one bar chart. If I put ID on there, on detail, now as I hover over this, I can also put it in the tooltip, and that might make more. See, if you put it in the tooltip, it just gives you an asterisk. The reason that gives you an asterisk is because there's multiple IDs per section. But if instead of in the tooltip, if you put it in the detail, now you get the ID for each individual section in the tooltip, and it breaks them out into separate sections. But that's still being sorted, right? These individual sections are being grouped together, which is usually fine. But for our purposes, we don't want them to be grouped together. We want to sort them by their order, like not a field. We want them to be their data source order. Nope. Their field. Let's see if it's the minimum ID. Interesting. How did I get that before? I've got to look at that real quick. I don't remember. So what's cool about Tableau Public, if there's ever anything that you don't know, you can, like if you see of something like what I created, we can download it. So I'm going to go right here. Scroll all the way to the bottom and click download the entire Tableau workbook in current format. Okay, it's opening up down here for us. There we go. So let's go here to our All Songs tab and see how this is being sorted. So album, year, song, the ID is being sorted by descending in the data source order. The attribute as a content type. It also has the YouTube link. Okay, let's see. Sort. What was it here? Here, it was the data source order descending. But it's not. That's interesting, isn't it? What is the deal? Album, let's put album year in there too. First of all, we need to convert album year to, we just want this to be not a measure, just a discrete album year. So if we right click drag, it'll be just the number. Actually, we have to click this guy and do discrete. This looks pretty cool. Yeah, it is cool, Techie. I wish I could figure out why it's not sorting the way I want it to, though. Okay, my content type needs to be an attribute, perhaps. Let me see here. That's probably it. Let's take our content type off, and now it's being sorted correctly. And then now let's color by the content type. Okay. Let's color by an attribute as a color content type. There we go. Okay, that's pretty weird. I didn't remember I had to do that before. So, I'm glad we had to figure that out together. If you just drag content type in there, for some reason, it's always going to put them in, it's going to group them together. But for whatever reason, I must have Googled it. If you right click, drag it in there, you'll have a pop-up and the option for the attribute content type. I'm not going to get into exactly why, and we'll try to figure it out, but there we go. So now we've created that guy. So then the next thing is okay, now let's make these, let's get in the right color first of all. So we'll go back to our pinks. And yeah, Techie, I get to work in this all the time for my job, so I really enjoy it. It's a pretty fun job because I get to do this kind of stuff all the time. But the problem is when you do it for work, then most of the time you're just doing boring, not boring, but it's like work stuff. You don't get to do anything super creative like this. So then we want to add in the YouTube link. So let's add in the time link here in our tooltip, or just in the detail. And then there's the link there, and then we can make it later so when that link gets clicked, it will jump to that specific segment. So now this is cool. This just shows us the data, but if we want to get it looking really cool, like this, we have to actually do quite a bit, some surgery to it, because what makes this chart different is that, actually, let's go back down here. Actually, this is doing it, right? So if I wanted this to look like that and break it apart, the difference is, rather than having my album as a, actually, I'll just show you. So what we're going to do is I'm going to right click. First I'm going to double click on a sheet name, and I'm going to call this All Albums and Songs. For work stuff, can you hook into surfaces like Firebase Analytics and add visualizations? Not sure. Maybe. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is take my album year off, put my album on my column. So what it's done now is, or does it need to be a spreadsheet? Oh no, I don't work in spreadsheets for work that much. Most of the time for work, it's SQL Server, and yeah, SQL Server, and then Tableau. But I work on like healthcare data, and so I'm not dealing with fun stuff like music. Okay, so now that we have all the albums broken out across like this, that's awesome. But the problem is each of our individual songs, like obviously they don't match up. So we want to replace the song name with the track number. So now we have that, which is really cool, which is great. We're getting there. Let's go ahead and hide the track number. So what we're trying to recreate is this here. This kind of header looking thing. And what this header is doing, the difference is that it's centered. So these bars being centered versus this guy all being on the left. So we want to center each of these underneath the album title. And normally you wouldn't want to do that because you'd want the, I'm sorry, I had the mouse on the wrong screen. We want to center each of these bar charts under the album name just to make it look cooler. And most of the time you wouldn't want to do that, but for our purposes, we're trying to make it look more artistic, so we do. So the field that we're actually going to use is called Art Axis Start. So what I've actually created it up here. Let me copy it real quick. What our art axis is doing is getting the date difference between the midpoint of the song and the start time for that individual segment. So I mentioned earlier that it was easier to calculate the midpoint in Excel, and and I had to have it to center my bar charts. So then if we chart that so we're going to put that here as our thing. But then we also have to change our chart type to be, we're going to change it to be a Gantt. Because now rather than, this is what we have to do. And then we're going to make the length. So each bar chart is now starting. The start of the bar chart is the middle of the song minus where the actual start point is. That way it's going to be centered. That's the start of each bar chart. And now we want the length of that bar to be the duration. So we're going to drag duration onto our size. And there we go. So now we have this long centered section here versus before. If I were to undo, actually, I will just duplicate. And then we'll change this to a standard bar chart with just the sum. Yeah. So in order to get these centered, we had to change our chart type from bar to Gantt, and then make the start time be the start time minus the middle, and then make the sum be the length. So that's how we did that. And then it's a matter of formatting. So we'd come in here and turn all these off. We also don't want any zero lines or axis labels. So now we have, and then we also, all right, so hide that guy. So this works. This gets you the album and then each individual song. That's perfect. But then what we want to do for the actual final piece is replace these album names with the album art. And on this computer, I just realized I don't have that. I don't have the art graphics, but I'll explain the process. So basically what we would do is we would create a new album. We put album ID on our columns, and also we're going to change our mark type to be shape. And then we're going to put album ID on our shapes. So that gives us different shapes for each album ID. And then when we click the shape, we have a drop-down menu here of a shape palette. And we have all sorts of different things. We have bar filled arrows, proportions, weather. I have some custom ones in here. I have one called Twitch icons. That's hilarious. We'll assign, that's really funny. Let's assign those. And then I also have Billboard. I have some stuff here. We're going to just pretend that these are what they're supposed to be. I don't have the actual albums, obviously. But yeah, there's obviously one of the last things that I built was related to Twitch. So we can make these a bit bigger, but I'll show you how you make these real quick. So in your documents, you have my Tableau repository. There is a shapes. And then there you go. You would just add a folder here for whatever. If I were to go in mine called Twitch icons, you see these here. So if I were to add more, those would be the ones that would show up. So we'll pretend these are our Pink Floyd album covers. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hide our headers here. And then we're going to hide our format and hide the borders. Okay, there we go. So let's call this our album header. And make this black. Format shading. Black. So finally, we're going to create a dashboard. By creating a new dashboard, we're going to format our dashboard and make it black as well. We're going to drag in our albums. Hide this legend, we don't need that. Get rid of our header, we don't need that. I'm going to click on this caret and say fit the width. So it's going to squeeze them all down. And we can adjust our width here. And then we're also going to drag in this guy that we created. It centers them. Once again, get rid of our legend. Get rid of the title. Again, fit him to the width. That way we know they're done exactly the same. And we can just bump them up here. And then since these are both made to fit, we know that they're going to line up because they're showing the exact same thing. So now that we know that, and if we pretend that these albums are actually correct, then we could then get rid of these headers. Okay, so now we've created really the hardest part about this visualization, about this dashboard. So let's go back up here and look at it. So this is just a graphic that I created. I just downloaded a Pink Floyd font and just wrote this in PowerPoint. We've just created this album, these albums right here. We haven't done the tooltips yet. I don't think I'm going to do that today because it would take a little bit too long. We've created this just now and put them together. These are just words. I'm not going to do this because it would, again, take too long. But basically what this is doing is it's, I'll show it actually real quick. So let's say that we want to allow the user to click to view, to listen to this song. So if we do dashboard actions, and this workbook, we can add a new one. We'll add an action. And what we want it to do is go to a URL. The URL, we'll just call this listen. This is going to apply not to the album header, but to the individual songs that are here. And the URL we want the user to go to, you could type it in, but we don't want it to be a constant. We want it to be passed in. So we're going to insert and the fields that we have available to us are the fields that we added into the visualization. So one of the fields we added in was a field called time link, which is the YouTube link. So we'll say that. And then you can see here, it's going to pass in YouTube, blah, blah, blah. So we can do that on hover, which would mean anytime I just passed my mouse over, it would pop up a link. We don't want to do that. We can do it on select, which means when I click it, which is what we want, or we can do it on menu. And what that means is you have to hover, wait, scroll, like get your mouse in exactly the right position and click it. That works okay, but it's a little bit annoying for uneducated people, and this is a broad audience. We just want to make it easy. We're going to do select. So we're going to say okay and okay. So now when I click here on this guy, it actually pops up and plays that song, which is really cool, right? Awesome. So let's go back down here. So the problem is, though, that now every time I click somewhere, I end up with, oh no, what have I done? So what's turned into really cool has now become really annoying. So what we want to do is let our users turn that off. So we're back here on the main. So this is the dashboard where it's all put together. Those links like that will only work on a dashboard. If I'm here, I'm going to delete this one so we don't get confused. If I'm here and I click, it doesn't actually do anything. It's only on the dashboard. So what I want to do is I want to create a parameter, an option for the user to turn that off. So I'm going to right click and say create parameter. I'm going to say enable auto play. And it's going to be a Boolean. And it's going to be true, false. And you can actually say like, let me listen, or turn it off. Something like that. And then you can show that parameter, let me listen, turn it off. Okay, cool. But that's cool, it doesn't actually do anything yet. So just because we made a drop-down menu, okay, it doesn't do anything. Now we have to actually make it do something. So we're going to create a calculated field. And that calculated field will just be like, we'll call it YouTube link, C for calculated field. And then it's gonna say if enable autoplay. We don't have to say equals true, it's just if. So basically saying if true, then we'll want to use that time link. Otherwise, nothing. So we don't want to, otherwise nothing. We could also just leave that out so it's assumed. So if enable autoplay, then give me the YouTube link. Otherwise, give me nothing. So, okay. So now if we replace that YouTube link with that time link with this YouTube link right here, then now you'll see here in my, as I hover over, my YouTube link shows nothing. This is on turn it off. Come on, let me listen. And it's turned on. So now we go back to our dashboard. Oh, now we have to give that user the ability. So we have to parameter enable autoplay. Here's a little thing here. We'll make it pretty later. So it's on let me listen. It doesn't work because I have to change my actions, dashboard actions. Double click this guy. This was passing in the field called time link. It's not there anymore. I now have to pass in the field called YouTube link. Okay. Invalid hyperlink. That's cool because it's nothing right now. Okay. So let me listen. What's the deal, yo? Let me listen. Should be our YouTube link. Oh, I didn't actually give it. I'm sorry. Back to our guy. I think I know that is the YouTube link. YouTube link. Sometimes it just don't work. Let's see. What did I do before? YouTube link is what I did. What is my YouTube link? Let's see. That's exactly what I did. Why isn't it working? See YouTube link. If enable play, then that guy end. Well, alright, well, that should have worked. I'm not sure why it doesn't. So we're going to pretend that that works, and we're going to move on to the tooltip, and that will be the last thing. So what else makes this cool are the tooltips. So in each individual tooltip, it's showing, it looks a lot cooler than just showing the information, right? So what we're doing is showing the album and the information, but the way that we did that was by making individual sheets. Unhide all sheets. So these are individual sheets with the tooltip images, and then we have an individual sheet with the track information. So let's go create that real quick. So I'm going to create a new worksheet. I'm going to make this one a kind of gray. So I'm going to do my shading is going to be a bit grayish. I think that will look cool. Then I'm going to drag in the information. So I'm going to get my album, do my text. I'm going to get the I'm going to do this for each segment. So I need the start time. And I don't need the song length, but I definitely need the start time. I need the album year, content type, how long it is, the end time, who's singing. I need the note, the song. That should do it. Let's drag all of that into our text. And let's make our text white. Okay. We're going to do this for each individual record. So we're going to drag ID in there. So now, all we have to do is go in and make this pretty. So the first thing we're going to do is add in the album. Really big. Sorry for the ugliness. It's kind of hard to do when it's white. Maybe it would have been better. Actually, the song is what we want here. The song, really big. Then we want the album underneath it. And the year after that. That'll be a little bit smaller. Then we want what's happening, the start time. Not the year or the start time. All right, we're gonna go in here and right click on our duration. Let's change all these. Custom formatting. Hang on, let's change the formatting of all these. So our duration, our end time, song length, start time, and our song midpoint. We want the format of all those. Oh shoot. Default properties, date format to be just the minutes and the seconds. And so now when we drag those fields in here, we wanted the start time, the end time, and the duration. I'm going to right click, drag those in to our text. And it just puts them in there like that, like 41 seconds and so forth, which is perfect. So now that we have that, let's go back. So that's going to be from insert start time to end time. And then what is it? Insert our content type. And then let's put our, we don't have our note, I don't think. Yeah, we do. And who's singing it. There we go. That's what that's going to look like. Apply. So this looks like a giant mess right now because you have all of them. But whenever this actually comes up in the tooltip, it's only going to be one of them. So now let's make it, we'll call this tooltip song info. And then we're going to make another one of these. It's going to be just the albums. We already have that here. The album headers. We're going to just duplicate this guy and call this tooltip album. All right. So now that we have that, we go to this guy, and we want to replace this entire tooltip, and we want it to be the art from those two things that we did, or those two other sheets. So we're going to click on tooltip, wipe all of this out, insert sheets, tooltip albums, and then right next to it with no space, insert sheets, tooltip song info. Okay. That's really cool, kind of. Not yet. See how it's all squished together and doesn't make any sense. Tooltip. We have these dimensions in here. So the maximum width of this guy is 300, and then the maximum height is 300, and the maximum width of this guy is 300, and the maximum height is 300. That's not enough room to fit everything. So let's make the maximum width 600 for the second one. Let's see. No. Let's see. What it actually is going to need to be is 200. And then we want this width to be 350. And this height to be 200. No. What is the deal? Well, we probably have to play with it a bit more to get it to be exactly there. But for the sake of time, I don't think I'm going to troubleshoot that anymore. But basically, that's how you would do it. And you could just go in and recreate this one if you'd actually like to see exactly how it's done. Here's how this one looks. So let's see if there's anything else in here that's tricky. So we talked about how this was created and on off here. We talked about each tooltip. And then we talked about centering these. Other than that, this is 3 separate charts. Each of these this one is a bar chart. This one is an area chart. And the reason I made it separate is because I wanted it to be smaller. I didn't want it to be as tall as this one. So I made it as a separate chart. And then this is the exact same thing we did before with the albums across the thing. And then I just lined them all up and then used shading to give the differentiation of each of these different rows. And then finally, this is just putting it all together again in more of a traditional format. So we just kind of put this filter right here, drives, apply to worksheets, selected worksheet. So this particular filter, this drop-down menu, is only being applied to this compare album 1. Only to these sheets. And you can see it's not being applied to these sheets. Versus this drop-down menu is being applied to those sheets only. So basically the way that we created this is we just did the same thing we did earlier for that tooltip. Format, shading. I need some shading here. We just dragged in the things that we cared about, formatted them in the text, and then applied a filter to that. So if I were to take this filter off, you'd get that same messy look that we saw before. But by putting a filter on here, then you just get it for 1. You can show this filter right here. You can see how it works. So we would, by applying that then to multiple sheets, then each of these is filtered out. This is a simple stack bar chart that we already did. So it's just duplicating the same work. And then it's just figuring out what to say. Let's see here. The other tabs, we've got the all songs, which we talked about. We already built this together. We did add a hierarchy that allows for expand and collapse. All data is nice, just a way to look at these things. And then lead vocals is still a work in progress. I can make this bigger though. There we go. So that's it. So Tableau, once again, Tableau Public is completely free. Everything that I've showed you today is free. Anybody can do it. Obviously, data is available freely. Just create your own, download something. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do. So if you do end up creating anything, I'd be happy. I'd love to hear about it. If you are interested in continuing this work and taking it and doing something more with it, I'd be happy to share it with you. So, yeah, thanks so much for everybody for being here, and we'll catch you later. Let's see where my end button is. Don't leave. I just want to end this segment thing, and I wonder if that's on the other. Well, all right. I wish I had a better ending. All right, y'all. Thanks so much. Let's. I'll kill it here on edit. I'll edit this out. But yeah, thanks for being here, y'all. That was really fun. Let's see if there's anybody that we can raid to. I had a thing. I wish I could find it. Tell me more. Show outro. There it is.